I can do it if you want to, like, talk.
Evan doesn't come in until 5.
No, but sure. Okay. My name is Eric Dyer. I'm one of the co-founders of Radio Hole. We're here at the kitchen on West 19th Street in New York City. And Radio Hole is presenting an original work called Inflatable Frankenstein.
Great. And your name?
I'm Ryan Holsopple.
And?
I'm Maggie Hoffman.
Another co-founder, and Joe Solowski.
Okay.
And these guys are associate holes.
And okay, so how this work was conceived? You know, even it's interesting that in the work you kind of tell a little bit of the history or the fictionated history.
Yeah. That's definitely a fiction.
Yeah.
We stole Danny Boyle's talk back and used that for our own. What's wrong?
I think that should be in the program.
Really? Okay. I wanted to keep that under wraps, but I guess it's not under wraps anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we watched the videotape of them doing a talk back, and then we used that, transcribed it, and made it ours.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's call it sampling.
Well, we do a lot of it. What we make are mashups, really, theatrical mashups.
Yeah.
And so this piece kind of started with the story of Frankenstein, and Artaud was the beginning. Those two, right?
Yeah.
The Body Without Organs.
Body Without
Exactly.
Organs.
All that.
Yeah.
And then where did it go?
We go to inflatable organs with a nobody.
Nobody, only organs.
Yes, and why Frankenstein? Just like if this amazing mythological perhaps.
I think at first we wanted something that would just be kind of fun to work with, but then we realized that we were really broke, and that we thought Frankenstein would be a good way to use a lot of old material and old things that we had, recycle old things to save money.
But also, we've worked with film genre in the past. You know, we've worked with spaghetti westerns, or like a couple years ago we made a piece based on Kenneth Anger's work, and so we've sort of always worked in some way from film, and we were interested in doing horror, and we had a lot of discussions about what that meant, what that could be. And Frankenstein was a way for us to all coalesce around that exploration, to give it some focus, because horror is such of a broad spectrum of what that is. And Frankenstein sort of focused it, but also Frankenstein has been done in so many different ways. It also left it an open question.
Right.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think that, of course, it lends perfectly to, of course, this notion of mashups, or because perhaps like the Body of Frankenstein is in itself a big mashup.
Yeah.
So if you can talk about that, because perhaps I see it in the work, but also with a lot of irony and exploiting some kind of camp about it, about the stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the process, there's a lot of different voices coming in, right? And so all of us find a voice in our different ways of expressing and our senses of humor. I mean, also in the films of, for example, The Bride of Frankenstein, it's very campy and very meta. So that sort of lent itself to our own sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so we're all bringing in things we're interested in, and some of us were more interested in Mary Shelley and her life, so then that comes in, and then there's other films.
And the dynamic relationship with also the gender and all the the stories that we have of when that story or that tale was written. It's like this kind of very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And the relationship with Lord Byron
and our work always, inevitably, we work over long, like we've been working on this for like 2 years, right?
And this was a premiere, just to say. Yeah.
And over that time, our own life experience, our own stories and relationships inevitably creeps into the work. And starts to become part of the language that we use, both like verbally and in every other sense. And it sort of developed in the same way we kind of grow with the technology, we start using OSC for one thing, and then the next thing you know, we're using it for all these other things.
Yeah. So it means I also felt that you were doing a Franken piece in itself. And just how come that you work with technology this way? I'm just going to move here to see you all. And also the inclusion of mobile phones, like a technology that it's affording different ways of fragmenting and connecting.
Yeah, but it's also, we are kind of techno geeks to a certain degree. So
You
it's
do
actually-
have to.
But it's kind of more natural for us to work this way. I mean, I'm always building machines and cutting wires and such, and so just trying to use the technology to its extreme is it's more natural to us than not using it.
Yeah.
To be on stage without controlling the lights and the sound just seems weird
Yeah.
to us.
And and there's another thing where like at certain point in the we all started getting iPhones just in our lives. Like we just started having this stuff, and our budgets are just so small, and suddenly we have this thing that you have anyway, right? So because we don't buy special phones for the show, we're all using
That's great.
our own phones, and so it's economical in that sense too.
Yeah.
you know?
That's why that 808 there is still, was that 15 years old and still,
Yeah.
it's still going?
There's another one under my bed.
Well, there was one scene when a scene was brought in that's kind of the last one, and I bring it up again with the dogs, and it was like, oh, can we have a sensor that somehow lets us know when we're running and moving, and that controls sound of some sort? And it's like, well, we don't need to buy anything because we're wearing a sensor on us.
Yeah.
We can measure, we can get analog data or whatever we want from what we already have. So how can we?
Right.
So we don't need to invest
But also
in anything more.
we save stuff from show to show. So for example, when we were at MPAC, they gave us a small equipment budget. So we invested in things that we thought we'd use, but we didn't use a lot of that stuff.
But we did your heart rate thing eventually.
We did the heart rate thing, but it becomes part of our repertoire. So we just have toys that we use from show to show. Like the 808 is a great example of something that's kind of been around since the second show maybe? We didn't have it for Bender, which was our first, but maybe.
And luckily, actually, the Flubber hasn't destroyed yet much equipment, because we
Right.
usually, last show was...
That is latex, isn't it? No, what is it?
Flubber.
It's Flubber,
Flubber.
it's a secret ingredient.
It's like the movie, that Disney movie.
Yeah,
Like all flubber movie.
yeah.
Wow. That's supposed to be the flesh, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some kind of flesh.
Yeah.
No, we make it on stage, and we use what we make on stage for the next day's show, etc. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you were talking about the last show where we.
Oh yeah, last show we had Jell-O and pudding flying around, and then in previous shows we've had beer and chicken, and always something's getting...
Yeah.
Maggie's in charge of what?
Protection.
Fluids, viscous fluids, and other
The fluids
materials.
division.
And we have we have all our equipment
Yeah.
is covered with like a crusty layer or something. A patina of different substances that we've used over the years. So, but I love that. I love being able to get crap all over our own monitors if we want to.
It's amazing because also you come from this kind of stage, the kind of technical background, and then you're not precious at all about the
No,
technology.
I think a part of it is a reaction to because I have to protect when I work for other people,
Yeah.
and they have. The cases for
Yeah.
their monitors are more expensive than our entire show. So they spend a lot of time protecting, and people are very precious about it. And I just get so, it feels so nice to be able to just let it go.
Yeah.
Technology, how what we do affects our dramaturgical choices. It's so hard to say because it's so
ingrained.
it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
It's already part of the dramaturgical choices.
It is, and I think it frustrates if a real dramaturgs, Germans
Or Belgium.
or Belgians, I think can get really, really frustrated because our dramaturgy is not it's not linear, and it's not linear in any way, and we're not afraid to bring in any reference because for us it's poetics. It's not we don't make linear theater. That's just not what we do. And it's funny because in the theater, it's such a conservative medium. I feel people sort of expect the narrative, and I'm like, well, come on, it's 2000 and whatever it is.
13.
but in the theater, you know, they expect literature and narrative.
Yeah.
So, and that's just really not what we do. And yeah, this kind of way of working we've been around for 15 years now. It's really, it's part of us. And like Joe was saying, we all sort of have technical backgrounds in some way or another. Some of our skills are overlapping and some are more exclusive, like you know, Ryan doing Max programming, for example. But both Joe.
I don't know.
Do you think that you are understood as
Understood.
artists? Understood?
No, that's kind of fascinating with this show, actually. It was kind of funny because one of the reviews actually said that the last show, Wah, he didn't think was as good of a radio hole. It wasn't like a radio hole aesthetic. And I always thought Wah was one of the greatest radio hole pieces. And so, no, I mean, I think we're understood in their own personal way, in their own esoteric way, but not in the same way as we understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very different, of course we have a different, every artist has their particular understanding of what they do and what the public understand. Some people, yeah, I think most people understand it to some degree. I think there's a level at which people don't understand it, which is a kind of, for me, an important aspect of the way we work together, the way we work. We're DIY. We do our own thing.
But since we are sort of setting ourselves up for failure sometimes, I feel like the show can be very different each night. So
Right.
he might have seen the show on a night that really sucked, where everything was going wrong, and, you know...
But also, I think that's relevant, too, because on a night that I think everything is really wrong, I'll get emails from people saying, that show rocked, and blah, 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 and I was like, okay.
But
Yeah.
perfection is not part of our.
Yeah.
It's not on our agenda, really. I mean, we work really hard to try to get some. There may be a contradiction. I mean, in some ways, we want it perfect.
Yeah.
but
You want
we
to
know
make it
never-
work? Yeah.
What is perfect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is perfect?
Right, I mean, the show was fabulous the other night when that horrible sound kept
Right.
coming into all of your monologues, and
Right.
everybody thought that was part of the show.
Right.
Yeah.
When Ableton was giving us a bug. But I mean, I think all of this stuff, a lot of the things that we use are part of our everyday life.
Yeah.
You know, and I think more and more it's, you know, in the world of performance seeping in and being taken in, people are using it in all different kinds of ways. I mean, I think we have our own way, and I'm sure other artists have different ways of folding, like Victor, for example, with the games, the game engines he's hacking. So I think in a really general sense,
You're hacking theater.
we're hacking theater, yeah. But we love to play around and explore, so we're always sort of open to new ideas and new technologies. And I'm sure the next work, which we don't know what it is going to fold in new things, you know, as we don't know exactly what that'll be.
Something complicated, something
So-
that will require us to be here at 2, setting up until 8, so we gotta get that out.
Yeah.
Just from the cell phones, that's it. Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
And there is a... Hello, is my friend. Hello.
Get
All right.
with a little sound.
It's on camera now.
We do pick the hairs out of our flubber, so
It's recyclable. You're reusable.
exactly.
Well, you don't give that to eat to the audience. So far.
Just like that word.
It's really good stuff.